in the hushed corridors of neonatal wards, where the tiniest lives begin their fight for survival. Trust is everything. Nurses are more than caregivers. They are guardians of hope for families clinging to every breath. But what happens when that trust is shattered from within? When the very person sworn to protect becomes a harbinger of tragedy? This is the story of Lucy Letby, once a promising neonatal nurse in the UK's National Health Service.
Lucy Letby. Over a period of almost 13 months between June 2015 and June 2016, when in your mid-20s and employed as a neonatal nurse in the Countess of Chester Hospital in Chester, with specialist training in intensive care, you murdered 7 babies and attempted to murder 6 others.
Later convicted of one of the most shocking crimes in modern British medical history, in 2023, Letby was found guilty of murdering multiple babies in her care, a case that rocked the nation and left a lasting scar on hospital trust. Despite the verdict, the debate continues in 2025. Documentaries, legal appeals, and public questions have reopened wounds and sparked intense discussion about how such a tragedy could happen under the watch of the NHS. To understand the full picture, we must go back to the beginning of Lucy Letby's life, her rise in the medical world, and the first signs that something was terribly wrong.
Lucy Letby was born in 1990 in Hereford, England. From a young age, she displayed an interest in caring for others, driven by empathy and a desire to make a difference. After completing her studies, she trained as a nurse specializing in neonatal care, joining the NHS with aspirations of helping the most vulnerable patients, newborn infants struggling to survive their first days. By 2011, Letby secured a position at the Countess of Chester Hospital, a respected facility known for its neonatal intensive care unit, NICU. Colleagues initially described her as dedicated and caring, often going above and beyond for her tiny patients. However, beneath the surface, a series of tragic events began to unfold. Neonatal intensive care wards are highly stressful environments. Premature babies and those born with severe health issues require constant monitoring and delicate interventions. Mortality rates, while improving over the years, still remain a concern, and every death prompts rigorous investigation to understand cause and improve care. In such settings, nurses play a crucial role in both medical and emotional support for families, often forming close bonds during the long, uncertain battles for survival. At Countess of Chester, the neonatal ward was no different, staffed by a team of skilled professionals facing daily challenges, always under pressure to save lives. Between 2015 and 2016, a troubling pattern emerged. Several babies in the ward died or suffered life-threatening complications without clear medical explanations. Although infant mortality is sadly not uncommon in NICUs, the unusual clustering of incidents raised suspicions among some staff members. Whispers began circulating. Could something more sinister be at play? Reports of unexplained cardiac arrests and sudden deteriorations led hospital management to launch internal reviews. However, initial investigations failed to identify any definitive cause, and many incidents were attributed to the fragile health of the infants. Still, a few colleagues became uneasy, sensing a pattern that was being overlooked. One nurse, who asked to remain anonymous, recalled, "There was always the feeling that things weren't right. Too many babies were getting worse under Lucy's care. But it was hard to speak up. She was well liked by some, and you didn't want to accuse anyone without proof." As the number of unexplained infant deaths and medical emergencies mounted at the Countess of Chester Hospital, hospital management and law enforcement found themselves facing a grim and unsettling reality. What had once been written off as tragic misfortune began to look more like something deliberate, something sinister. The troubling cluster of incidents between 2015 and 2016 had initially raised red flags among hospital staff, But it was not until 2017 that formal investigations gained momentum. Parents of affected babies demanded answers, growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of clear explanations from hospital administrators. Concerns were brought to the attention of the NHS Trust's Patient Safety Team. An independent review was commissioned to analyze the deaths and medical records, focusing on patterns that could indicate negligence or foul play. What the review revealed shocked many. Data showed a disproportionate number of critical incidents occurred during shifts worked by Lucy Letby. The statistical anomaly was significant. The probability that these events were random was infinitesimally small. In addition to infant deaths, Letby's shifts also saw an unusual number of severe complications among surviving babies, including sudden collapses and unexplained seizures. The review concluded that the pattern could not be explained by chance alone, prompting hospital leaders to escalate concerns to the police. The investigation was further propelled by courageous staff members who chose to come forward, breaking a code of silence often present in hospital environments. Nurses and doctors shared their suspicions and experiences, painting a troubling picture of Letby's behavior. Some colleagues reported witnessing Letby administering unauthorized medications or behaving in ways inconsistent with standard medical care. Others spoke of her seeming fixation on certain babies and appearing unusually calm or even satisfied during crises. By late 2017, Cheshire Police launched a full criminal investigation. Officers painstakingly gathered evidence, reviewing medical records, shift patterns, and hospital CCTV footage. Forensic analysis was carried out on medical substances found in the ward, and exhumations of some infants' bodies were authorized to perform toxicology tests. The investigation was complex and sensitive, given the vulnerable victims and the hospital's reputation. Police had to balance thoroughness with discretion, all while managing intense media scrutiny. In July 2018, Lucy Letby was arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. The news sent shockwaves through the hospital community and the nation. The charges initially included the deaths of 8 babies and the attempted murder of 6 others. But as the investigation continued, more victims were identified, increasing the gravity of the accusations. Letby was suspended from her nursing duties and held in custody pending trial. Reactions were mixed and often emotional. Some colleagues expressed disbelief, recalling Letby as a caring nurse. Others grappled with feelings of guilt and regret for not raising concerns sooner. Families of the victims expressed profound grief and outrage, demanding justice for their babies. The case quickly became one of the most high-profile criminal investigations involving a healthcare professional in recent UK history. News outlets closely followed every development, fueling public debate about patient safety and hospital oversight. Some media coverage focused on the hospital's handling of early warnings, questioning whether institutional failures had allowed Letby's alleged actions to continue unchecked. As the investigation wrapped up, prosecutors prepared a complex case built on medical evidence, expert testimony, and witness statements. The trial was anticipated to be lengthy and emotionally charged, testing the limits of the justice system when confronting crimes against the most vulnerable. The arrest of Lucy Letby marked the beginning of a long and painful journey toward truth and accountability. But questions remained. How could such crimes have gone undetected for so long? And what lessons would the NHS learn from this tragedy? In October 2023, after years of investigation and anticipation, the trial of Lucy Letby finally began. The courtroom was filled with the weight of expectation, sorrow, and anger, as the nation waited to hear the truth behind the harrowing accusations. The prosecution's case was meticulous and harrowing. Prosecutors presented a compelling narrative backed by medical records, expert testimony, and forensic evidence linking Letby to the deaths and attempted murders of multiple infants. Key evidence included surveillance footage, records of medication administered, and statistical analyses demonstrating the unusually high incidence of adverse events during Letby's shifts. Experts testified about the nature of the injuries sustained by the babies, many showing signs of deliberate harm, such as lethal doses of insulin or air introduced into the bloodstream. Families of the victims gave emotional testimonies, recounting their brief moments with their babies and the devastating losses they endured. Medical professionals testified to the chaos and confusion caused by the unexplained collapses, describing a deeply troubling atmosphere in the neonatal ward during Letby's shifts. Some former colleagues spoke out about Letby's behavior, including her apparent detachment during critical incidents and suspicious actions that raised concerns. Letby's defense team sought to challenge the prosecution's case, arguing that the deaths could be attributed to natural causes, fragile infant health, and systemic failures in the hospital. They highlighted the pressures faced by medical staff in neonatal wards and questioned the reliability of some of the statistical evidence. Letby herself denied all charges, maintaining her innocence throughout the trial. After weeks of intense legal proceedings, the jury reached their verdict. Lucy Letby was found guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 6 others.
You murdered 7 babies and attempted to murder 6 others. In the case of one of them, trying on separate occasions 2 weeks apart to murder her.
A verdict that shocked many but was met with relief by grieving families seeking justice. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order, meaning she will never be eligible for release. The verdict triggered widespread media coverage and public discussion. Many hailed the outcome as a necessary act of justice, while others grappled with the unsettling realization that such atrocities could occur in a place meant to be safe. The NHS faced criticism for its early handling of the case, prompting calls for improved patient safety protocols and whistleblower protections. The case sent shockwaves through the healthcare profession, raising awareness about the potential for harm within trusted institutions and emphasizing the importance of vigilance and transparency. Training and safeguarding measures for neonatal care workers were reviewed and strengthened in many hospitals across the UK. While justice was served, the scars left by Lucy Letby's actions run deep, in families, in the medical community, and across the nation. But the story did not end with the verdict. New developments and ongoing debates would soon bring the case back into the public eye. 2 years after the courtroom verdict, the case of Lucy Letby continues to reverberate across the UK. What started as a shocking criminal trial has evolved into a broader conversation about patient safety, hospital oversight, and the very nature of trust in healthcare. Since 2023, multiple documentaries have examined the details of the Letby case, bringing new perspectives and voices to the forefront. These productions have delved into the intricate timeline of events, the hospital's response, and the legal proceedings, offering both expert analysis and emotional testimonials from families and medical professionals. One such documentary, released in early 2025, reignited public interest by exploring unanswered questions and highlighting alleged systemic failures within the NHS. The renewed spotlight sparked intense debate. Some praised the transparency, while others feared sensationalism could overshadow the victim's dignity. In 2025, Lucy Letby's legal team filed appeals against her conviction, citing alleged procedural errors and disputing key evidence. The appeals process has been met with mixed reactions. Supporters argue for the importance of due process, while victims' families and advocacy groups fear it could prolong their trauma. Legal experts emphasize that while appeals are a standard part of the justice system, the complexity of the evidence and the severity of the crimes make outcomes uncertain. The Letby case exposed glaring weaknesses in hospital protocols and communication channels, prompting widespread reforms. The NHS has since introduced stricter monitoring systems in neonatal units, including enhanced surveillance, regular audits, and improved whistleblower protections to encourage staff to report concerns without fear of reprisal. Training programs now emphasize early detection of unusual patterns and mental health support for healthcare workers facing high-pressure environments. The case deeply shook public trust in the healthcare system. Families entrust hospitals with their most vulnerable loved ones, expecting care, compassion, and safety. Lucy Letby's actions challenge those assumptions, raising uncomfortable ethical questions about how such harm could be inflicted by a caregiver. Experts have debated the psychological profile of healthcare workers who cause harm, balancing the need for accountability with understanding mental health complexities. The Letby case remains a reference point in discussions about patient safety and medical ethics. Professional bodies, policymakers, and advocacy groups continue to push for reforms that protect patients while supporting healthcare workers. Social media platforms host active debates, with voices ranging from grieving families to medical professionals and legal analysts. Lucy Letby's story is a grim reminder of the fragility of trust and the importance of vigilance in healthcare. As investigations, trials, and reforms continue to unfold, the hope remains that lessons learned will lead to safer, more transparent care, ensuring that the smallest voices are never again left unheard. The tragic case of Lucy Letby has left an indelible mark on families, the medical community, and the nation. It exposed the darkest shadows lurking within a system built on care and compassion, a chilling reminder that vigilance must never waver, and voices of concern must always be heard. As debates continue and reforms take shape, the memory of those precious lives lost fuels a collective commitment to protect, to heal, and to ensure that trust in our healthcare system is restored and never broken again. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Tea and Tragedy. If you found this documentary meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth stories from across the UK's true crime landscape. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop seeking the truth.